Welcome back to the Pro Sports Podcasters on YouTube. My name's Cobe. Most of you know me as Cobe from the podcast. And today I want to take a closer look at the UFC because it finds itself in one of those situations that makes you wonder whether or not what you're seeing is real. And I'm not talking it's like the WWE here. This is not a fake sport. It's legit. But what happens sometimes is the UFC finds themselves in a position where they don't really have a truly marketable product at the time. And the situation is this. You have a number of champions that are relatively untouchable. Okay, so that's currently the case in a few divisions. Then you've got a number of legitimate contenders, only they've already been beaten by those champions. And that's the case in a lot of the divisions. So what you require really is some new blood, some new talent, some up-and-comers that can pose a legitimate threat to these juggernauts that are sitting on top. And there are a number of sort of marketed and hyped fighters that are getting close to that opportunity now. But what I want to know is, are these fighters the real deal? Or are they just a manufactured mirage by the UFC brass? Because we've seen that before and it could be happening again. So in this video, we're going to try and decide, are these fighters legit or are they very well polished fakes? Let's get into it. On this episode, we'll look at the featherweights. And before we get into it, let's just admit it. Featherweight is a problem for the UFC. Alexander Volkanovski is a problem for the UFC, so much so that they are encouraging him to move up to lightweight. But until he does, who do we have at featherweight that can really challenge someone at the top of their game and just quite a few levels ahead of the competition? Well, there's two. And again, similar to the bantamweights, they're very different in that one of them is 37 years old and the other is 10 years his junior at 27. And I'll begin with the veteran of the two, and that's Josh Emmett. And Josh Emmett is interesting in that he appears to just keep getting better. The only thing that worries me is in his last fight, he did look a little bit winded, somewhat, halfway through it, which in a 5-round contest against Volkanovski is not a good weakness to have. But that being said, his last few fights have been serious opponents. Like, these are no joke opponents. He's proven himself to be more than just a wrestler, which is what everyone thought he was. And keep in mind, he's part of the Team Alpha Male, and they're stock full of wrestlers. So his wrestling is going to be a huge part of his game. But in his last handful of fights, he's demonstrated some real power in his hands. So at any given time, he can sort of fake the shot for the takedown and catch you with like an overhand right or left and put you away. So Josh Emmett has become more of a complete fighter, but against someone like Volkanovski, I don't know if you can exploit that because Volkanovski is not going to fall for any of those feints, and Volkanovski prefers to dictate the fights in a lot of those situations. Now, his last three opponents were Shane Burgos, Dan Ige, and Calvin Kattar. Solid opponents, like I said. They're three top contenders. Right? All of these guys could, with a win or two, find themselves in a championship bout against Volkanovski. I honestly think that one more win for Josh Emmett, and it's a good chance he'll get himself a title shot, is whether or not he wants it and whether or not he can handle it. And I don't want to call him a fake. I just don't think that right now, in the featherweight division, that you've got a real opponent for Volkanovski. You really don't. And unfortunately, the next tier down is a pretty high tier, right? That's Max Holloway. And maybe he's the gatekeeper now. It's almost like you're champion B before you reach champion A. Like, you got to beat Holloway if you want a shot at Volkanovski. And beating Holloway is no easy feat either. Holloway's got great takedown defense. He moves really well. He's a great striker. He's got a decent ground game to speak of, which has only improved in so many preparation camps for Volkanovski that if Emmett's got to face Holloway, I don't know if Emmett can beat Holloway. I really don't. Especially if it's a 5-round, title eliminator fight. Then I got to give the edge to Holloway. So I don't know if we really have a competitor at this division. that can maybe face Volkanovski and make it a real fight. But if there is one, it's the next guy. So Emmett counts as a fake. Like I said before in a previous video, these aren't fakes. These guys are all legit. It's just when it comes to whether or not they can really challenge for the title and deserve to be there, he's not ready yet, and he may never be. But the next guy I got on my list is Arnold Allen. And Arnold Allen sort of came out of nowhere. Okay, he just kind of came out of nowhere, but has demonstrated some great resilience in his fight, some phenomenal technique in his last few fights, and both a in-depth, high-level understanding of the grappling game and just some really dangerous, sick striking. I really like Arnold Allen. My only issue with Allen is his defense seems to be lacking. He tends to get caught in all of his fights, and Volkanovski has the kind of power to just put you away if you're not ready to slip a punch or roll with a strike or something like that, because Volkanovski is just a beast at this weight class. But Arnold Allen has all the tools to do it, and we saw him in his last fight. When he fought his previous fight with Dan Hooker, that was supposed to be a major test for him, okay? That was supposed to be a huge step up for Arnold Allen. And he ripped through Hooker like it was nothing. He looked surprised at the end that it was that easy. That's how well he beat Dan Hooker. And Dan Hooker is a former title contender. So Arnold Allen has shown that it doesn't matter who you put in there with him, he's dangerous. And they've kind of put him through all the steps necessary. So he's beaten a couple of veterans in Melendez and Lentz. Took them out. He fought another up-and-comer with a lot of hype in Sadiq Youssef and put him away. And like I said, smoked Dan Hooker like it was a sparring session. So I would like to see Allen face Volkanovski right now. I would like to see that next. That would be the fight that I would want to see. I think you may ruin that fight if you put him against Max Holloway. Again, here's the issue. Max Holloway is a very smart fighter, very resilient, has a full mixed martial arts repertoire. He's good everywhere. He's not going to get caught. And he's going to put Arnold Allen in situations that maybe he hasn't faced yet and is not ready for. So I would have to give the edge to Max Holloway there, but I actually think Arnold Allen poses a bigger threat to Volkanovski than obviously Max Holloway does. So I'd love to see that be his next fight. It's probably not going to be. They're probably going to have him face Max Holloway or someone else first. I hope it's someone else, because Arnold Allen has the raw talent and the skill set that if he just tunes things up a little bit, can be a legitimate contender for Alexander Volkanovski. So he's a real deal in my books.